Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into Applied Materials. I don't know about you, but I'd never really heard of this company until recently.
Well, you're not alone there. Most people haven't, but their tech is probably all around you.
Yeah, like in our smartphones and computers and all that.
Exactly, yeah. We're talking semiconductors, those tiny chips that are like the brains of all our electronics. And Applied Materials is a major, major player in making those chips possible.
So like the behind-the-scenes heroes of the tech world.
Yeah, pretty much.
So we've got this article from the Motley Fool that caught my eye called Stock Split Watch. Is Applied Materials next?
Mm-hmm.
And it got me thinking, even if I'm not actively playing the stock market, what can this company tell us about the future of tech in general? You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. That's a really good question. What's so fascinating about Applied Materials is that they're not just riding the wave of all these tech advancements, they're actually the ones enabling it. They provide the equipment to these huge companies, Taiwan Semiconductor, Samsung, Intel, all the big names.
So basically, if it's got a chip in it, Applied Materials is probably involved somehow.
Yeah, you got it. And this article highlights just how successful they've been. Their stock has, get this, increased by almost 600% over the last 10 years.
Wow.
And on top of that, their revenue and earnings have just been steadily growing. We're talking like a 12% compound annual growth rate for revenue. And hold on to your hats, 26% for earnings per share. And all this just from 2014 to 2024.
So they're clearly doing something right.
Clearly.
But here's the thing that's throwing me off.
Yeah.
If they're doing so incredibly well, why haven't they split their stock recently? The article says they've done it 9 times since their IPO way back in 1972, but it's been over 20 years since the last one. It's what gives?
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. And it really gets to how the market's thinking has shifted, right? Back in the day, splitting a stock made the share seem more affordable, especially for individual investors.
Sure, yeah.
Now, with things like zero commission trading and the option to buy fractional shares, splitting just doesn't have that same impact anymore.
So splitting the stock wouldn't actually change the value of the company. It's all just perception.
Exactly. And it seems like Applied Materials is focusing on what actually drives long-term value. Things like investing in their core business, managing through those economic ups and downs, and rewarding shareholders through buybacks and dividends.
So they're in it for the long haul.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Okay, so long-term strategy, got it. But what about their future? This article mentions some fluctuation in their revenue, like a massive 34% jump in 2021 during that whole chip shortage craziness.
Right.
But then slower growth afterwards. Does that worry you at all?
I wouldn't say so, no. I think it's really important to remember that the semiconductor industry, it's cyclical. So all these external things, global events, supply chain issues, even new tech advancements, they all have an impact on demand,
Yeah.
That chip shortage, that was a pretty unique situation, and it makes sense that things would level out a bit afterwards.
So it's like a roller coaster, but the general trend is still upwards.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, it's like a roller coaster up and down, but ultimately going in the right direction. And get this, analysts are predicting some pretty solid growth ahead for Applied Materials. We're talking about 9% revenue growth and 10% earnings per share growth. And that's just from 2024 to 2026.
For a company that's already so big, those are impressive numbers.
They really are, yeah.
So what's driving all this optimism? Is it just more smartphones and laptops and all that?
Well, that's definitely part of it, but there's a lot more going on. Think about the explosion of artificial intelligence. AI chips, they're becoming so crucial. And guess who's supplying the equipment to make those?
Applied Materials.
You got it. Plus, there's this huge push for energy efficiency. Chips need to be super powerful, but they also have to use less energy. And that creates whole new demands on the manufacturing side of things.
So they're not just keeping up with the trends, they're actually setting the stage for the next wave.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Applied Materials, they're really focused on what they call integrated solutions. Imagine streamlining the whole chip-making process, making it more efficient and cost-effective all around.
Wait, hold on. Can we break that down a bit? What do they mean by integrated solutions in this context?
Sure. So traditionally, making a chip involves tons of steps. Each step has its own separate specialized equipment.
Right, yeah.
And what Applied Materials is doing is they're developing these systems that combine multiple steps into a single platform.
Oh, okay.
So you reduce the need for all these separate machines, speed up production. Ultimately, it could really bring down the cost of making these advanced chips.
And that's a game changer, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the demand for even more powerful chips just skyrocketing.
Yeah, it's huge. It really shows that Applied Materials is thinking ahead, anticipating what their clients are going to need. Because let's face it, chip makers are under immense pressure to make these chips that are faster, more efficient, more affordable.
Yeah, for sure.
And Applied Materials is giving them the tools to do that.
Okay. So it seems like they're in a pretty prime position for growth. That's clear. But let's talk about the everyday person out there, the person who's like, should I invest in this company? What would you tell them?
Well, that's where things get a bit tricky. The article mentions that Applied Materials stock, it's currently trading at 18 times forward earnings. Now, for those who aren't familiar with that lingo, it basically means the stock price is 18 times higher than what analysts expect the company to earn per share, but, in the future.
Right.
And this ratio, it's a way to kind of compare the value of different companies, right? So 18, that might sound high at first glance, but considering their growth potential, some might say it's actually a bargain.
So it's not just about the current price, it's about the potential, right?
Yeah.
Like, is the company likely to grow and become even more valuable down the line?
You got it. And it's important to remember this isn't some get-rich-quick scheme. Investing in a company like this, it's a long game. It's about kind of betting on the future of technology and the role they play in making it happen.
It's like investing in the picks and shovels during a gold rush. You might not be finding the gold yourself, but you're supplying the tools that everyone needs to strike it rich.
I like that analogy a lot.
Right.
And it really emphasizes why a company like Applied Materials is worth paying attention to. Even if you're not an investor, just understanding their story, it gives you a glimpse into what's driving the tech we all rely on.
Yeah, that's true. It's like a peek behind the curtain of the tech world.
Exactly. Reading through this Motley Fool article, the thing that really stood out to me was how they break down the different types of chips Applied Materials helps to create. They mentioned foundries, logic chips, and memory chips. And it just made me realize there's this whole world behind those terms, a world that most people probably don't even think about.
It's true. We use words like microchip all the time, but I'll be honest, I'm a little fuzzy on the details myself.
Right.
Can we unpack that a bit? What's the actual difference between those types of chips, and where does Applied Materials fit into each of them?
Yeah, totally. Let's start with foundries. Basically, these are the factories where the chips are actually made. They've got all this incredibly specialized equipment, super clean rooms, everything you need to create these microscopic components.
Oh, wow.
Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, TSMC, they're the biggest name in the game. They make chips for Apple, Qualcomm, all the giants.
So like a high-tech bakery, but instead of cakes, they're churning out chips.
I like that. That's a good way to think about it. And Applied Materials, they're crucial to these foundries. They supply all those machines that deposit layers of materials, etch those tiny patterns, basically do all the intricate steps to build up those chips layer by layer.
Okay, so foundries are the where. What about logic chips? What are they all about?
Logic chips, those are the brains of the operation. They process information, they make decisions, they carry out the instructions that make our devices actually work, like the CPU in your computer or the processor in your phone. Those are logic chips.
Okay. So is that where companies like Intel come in?
You got it. Intel designs and manufactures a lot of the logic chips that power our computers and servers, and you guessed it, they rely on Applied Materials for a bunch of their manufacturing equipment.
So Applied Materials is working with these big companies on both the manufacturing and the design side.
Yeah, pretty much across the board.
Okay, so we got the where and the brains. What about memory chips? Those are for spec data.
Exactly. Think about the RAM in your phone, the SSD in your laptop, even the flash drive you use to transfer files. They all rely on different types of memory chips.
And companies like Micron Technology, they're big in that market, right?
Yep, Micron's a major player. And just like the others, they rely heavily on Applied Materials equipment to manufacture all those memory chips.
So it's all starting to make sense now. No matter what type of chip we're talking about, Applied Materials is probably involved in the process somewhere. They're like the unsung heroes, making this whole digital world possible.
I love that. Because it's true, they're essential, but they often get overshadowed by the companies that are making those final products. We got to give credit where credit is due, right?
Absolutely. But this industry, it's constantly changing. What are some of the biggest challenges that Applied Materials faces as tech keeps moving forward at such a rapid pace?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles is just the sheer complexity of modern chips. Transistors, they're getting smaller and smaller. We're talking billions of them crammed onto these tiny, tiny pieces of silicon. Manufacturing at that scale, it's mind-blowing. It requires incredible precision and the most cutting-edge tech you can imagine.
So it's like trying to build a skyscraper
Yeah.
on the head of a pin.
Huh. Yeah, that's a great way to visualize it.
Right.
And that's why Applied Materials has to be constantly innovating. They're pouring tons of money into R&D just to create that next generation of equipment that can even keep up with those demands.
It's like an arms race almost.
It is.
The chip designers, they keep pushing the limits, and Applied Materials has to keep pace to make sure those designs can actually become reality.
Exactly. And then on top of all the technical challenges, there's the economic side of things. The semiconductor industry, it's notorious for its cyclical nature, booms and busts, demand going up and down. It's a roller coaster.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier with the chip shortage and everything. So many things can disrupt the balance, right?
Yeah.
Global events, supply chain issues, it's a lot.
Oh, absolutely. And Applied Materials, they've got to be able to navigate all those uncertainties, make smart decisions about investing in the right tech, managing their suppliers, and most importantly, anticipating where the market is headed next.
It sounds like a high-stakes game for sure. Which leads me to my next question. How do they even decide where to focus all that effort? The article mentions like two big trends that seem to be shaping the future of chips, AI and energy efficiency. Can we dig into those a bit more?
Yeah, definitely. So first, AI, artificial intelligence, it's changing everything, right?
Yeah.
And it needs a whole new breed of chips to keep up. We're talking about processors that can handle these massive amounts of data and do all these crazy complex calculations that AI applications require. Think about self-driving cars, facial recognition, even like those personalized recommendations you get on streaming services. It's all powered by AI chips.
So it's not just about making chips smaller anymore. It's about making them smarter, more specialized for specific tasks.
Exactly. And Applied Materials, they're involved in developing the equipment that makes all of that possible. New materials, advanced packaging techniques, innovative ways to connect those chips to the rest of the system. It's a whole new ballgame.
It sounds like they're really on the cutting edge of this whole AI revolution.
They are, and that's one of the reasons why they're considered such a solid long-term investment, They're not just following the trends, they're actively creating them. And the same goes for energy efficiency, that other big trend we mentioned.
Yeah, that one's super interesting to me. Why is energy efficiency such a big deal for chips, though? I mean, they're already tiny.
True, individual chips don't use a ton of energy. But think about it, there are billions of chips in use all over the world. So all that energy consumption, it adds up fast.
Ah, okay, I see.
Plus, think about all our mobile devices. Battery life is a huge deal for everyone, right? More efficient chips, that means longer battery life, which is a win-win for consumers.
So it's not just about saving money on electricity. It's also about making our gadgets more portable and convenient.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the environmental aspect. More efficient chips equal less energy wasted, which is good for the planet.
Right. So we've got AI and energy efficiency driving the need for these new types of chips. How is Applied Materials adapting to all of that?
They're doing a few key things. First off, they're pouring money into research and development, like we talked about. They're creating the manufacturing equipment that's needed for these next-gen chips. New materials that can handle higher power, more precise etching techniques to create those teeny tiny features. It's all about pushing the limits of what's possible.
So they're basically inventing the tools that will build the future of technology.
Pretty much. And it's not just about individual components, they're thinking big picture too. Remember that integrated solutions concept we talked about?
Yeah, merging different manufacturing steps into a single system.
Right. Well, that approach is becoming even more critical as chips get more complex. By integrating those different steps, they can help chip makers boost efficiency, lower costs, and ultimately make those advanced chips more affordable for everyone.
So it's not just about making better chips, it's about making them in a smarter way.
Exactly. And that's what makes this focus on integrated solutions so exciting. It shows they're thinking ahead, anticipating the needs of the industry. They're not just reacting. They're shaping the future of how chips are made.
This has been super insightful, but I can't help but wonder, how do all these trends affect the competitive landscape? The article mentioned a few other big players like ASML and TSMC. How does Applied Materials stack up against them?
That's a great question. Okay, so ASML, they're based in the Netherlands, and they're the kings of a very specific type of manufacturing equipment called lithography machines. These machines use light to etch those incredibly small patterns onto silicon wafers. And ASML, they've pretty much cornered the market on this advanced lithography technology called EUV extreme ultraviolet lithography. It's super high tech.
So they're basically creating the blueprints for the chips.
Yeah, you could say that. They handle that crucial step of defining all the features on the chip, and their technology is absolutely essential for making the most advanced chips out there.
Got it. And what about TSMC? We talked about them earlier, the world's biggest foundry, right?
Yep. TSIC is what's called a contract chip maker. They manufacture chips for other companies that design them. They have these massive facilities, tons of expertise, and they're pumping out huge volumes of chips for companies like Apple, Qualcomm, NVIDIA, all the big names.
So where does Applied Materials fit in with all of that?
Applied Materials, they actually provide a wide range of equipment and services to both ASML and TSMC and a ton of other chip makers around the world. They're kind of like the glue that holds the whole industry together, you know?
The unsung heroes again.
Exactly. They supply the machines that deposit the layers of material, etch the patterns, clean the wafers, and do all those essential steps in between the lithography process and the final assembly of the chip. It's all connected.
So they're the ultimate collaborators, working with everyone to push the boundaries of chip technology.
That's a great way to put it. They may not be the most well-known player, but they're absolutely essential to the entire ecosystem. And that's why their success is so intertwined with the success of the semiconductor industry as a whole.
This is really making me think about the bigger picture now. We started with this simple question about stock splits, and now we're delving into the forces that are shaping the future of technology.
That's the beauty of these deep dives, right? Sometimes the most unexpected questions lead to the most fascinating discoveries.
I totally agree. And speaking of discoveries, there's one more thing I wanted to touch on. The article briefly mentioned that Applied Materials is really focusing on providing these integrated solutions for their clients, even merging multiple process steps into single systems. Could you explain what that means exactly, and why is that such a big deal?
Yeah, sure. So traditionally, chip making has been like an assembly line. You have a separate machine for each step, right? Depositing materials, etching patterns, cleaning the wafers, all separate.
Right.
What Applied Materials is doing now is they're creating systems that combine multiple steps onto one platform.
So instead of a whole toolbox, it's like having one of those multi-tools.
Perfect analogy. And it's a big deal for a few reasons. First, it can streamline the whole manufacturing process, make it more efficient, less prone to errors. Second, it reduces the amount of space needed for all that equipment, which is a huge plus as chip factories get more and more complex. And third, potentially it could bring down the cost of actually making those chips.
That all sounds pretty amazing. But are there any downsides to this integrated approach? Could it make Applied Materials more vulnerable if something goes wrong with one of those multi-step systems?
You know, that's a really good point. It highlights just how important careful planning and execution are. Because if you have a problem in a system that's handling multiple steps, yeah, it could potentially disrupt a larger portion of the manufacturing process. So Applied Materials has to make absolutely sure that these integrated systems are reliable, that they're robust.
So there's both opportunity and risk with this new approach.
Yeah, there's always a balance, right?
Right.
But the potential benefits are so big that it's definitely worth exploring. If Applied Materials can pull this off, it could give them a huge advantage over their competitors and really solidify their place as a leader in this whole chip-making world.
You know, I got to say, after this deep dive into Applied Materials, I'm looking at my phone a little differently. I never really thought about all the tech packed into this tiny thing.
Yeah.
Or the crazy process behind it all.
It really is mind-blowing, isn't it? Semiconductors, they're like the unsung heroes of our digital world. Powering everything, smartphones, laptops, cars, even home appliances, the internet itself, really.
It's wild. And to think, Applied Materials, a company most people have probably never even heard of, they're playing such a crucial role in making it all happen.
It really shows you that innovation, a lot of times it happens behind the scenes, you know? In the labs, the factories, where these brilliant engineers are pushing the limits of what's possible, quietly shaping our world.
That's a great point. But okay, let's switch gears for a second. Let's bring it back to the investor's perspective. The article kind of hinted that Applied Materials could be a really good long-term investment in such a, dynamic and complex industry, what makes them stand out as a potential opportunity?
Well, they have a lot of things working in their favor. First off, they're a leader in a market that's only going to keep growing. I mean, think about it. The demand for semiconductors, it's driven by everything these days. The growth of smartphones and computers, sure, but also AI, the Internet of Things, energy efficiency, it's all connected.
They're not just riding the wave, they're basically supplying the building blocks for the entire digital world.
Exactly. And secondly, Applied Materials, they have this proven track record of innovation. They've been around for decades, constantly adapting to the demands of the industry. They're not afraid to invest in R&D. They're always pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, that definitely suggests they can stay ahead of the curve. But let's be real for a sec. The semiconductor industry, it's known for its ups and downs, right? We talked about the chip shortage, the cyclical nature of demand. Doesn't that make it kind of risky to invest in this sector?
Sure, there are always risks with any investment. And yeah, semiconductors can be particularly sensitive to economic shifts, global politics, even tech disruptions. But the thing is, Applied Materials, they've shown that they can navigate these challenges over and over again.
So they've weathered the storms before, and they're likely prepared for any future turbulence.
That's the idea. They've got a strong financial base, diverse customers, and a deep, deep understanding of how this industry works. They're also pretty proactive when it comes to managing risk and adapting to whatever the market throws at them.
Okay, so it sounds like they have a really solid foundation for success in the long run. But for someone who's maybe new to investing or unfamiliar with the tech world in general, what would you recommend? How should they approach a potential investment in Applied Materials?
My advice is always the same. Do your research. Before making any investment decisions, really understand the company, their business model, who they're competing with, their financials, their growth potential.
So don't just jump in based on a single article or a hot tip from a friend.
Exactly. Look at the big picture. Make informed decisions that align with your own financial goals and your risk tolerance. It's your money, after all.
Makes sense. And in the case of Applied Materials, there's a lot to consider. We've talked about their role in AI, energy efficiency, their focus on these innovative solutions like integrated manufacturing, and of course their ability to, navigate the crazy world of semiconductors.
It's a fascinating company, no doubt. And their future, well, it looks pretty bright. But as with any investment, do your homework, make sure it fits into your own personal financial strategy.
I think that's some really solid advice. And I think we covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? We started with a simple question about stock splits and ended up on this deep dive into the whole semiconductor industry, the companies behind it, the complexities of making chips, the challenges and opportunities facing Applied Materials, and of course, what potential investors should be thinking about.
It's been a great conversation, and I hope our listeners now have a better understanding of this really vital but often overlooked part of the tech world.
I hope so too. And, even if you're not planning to invest in Applied Materials, just understanding their story, it gives you this valuable insight into the forces that are shaping the technology we use every single day.
Absolutely. It's a great reminder that innovation can come from unexpected places, and that the companies working behind the scenes, they're often just as important as the big names we all know.
Couldn't agree more. So, as always, we encourage everyone listening, keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep diving deep into the things that spark your curiosity.
The more we learn, the better equipped we'll be to navigate this crazy, ever-changing world.
Perfectly said.
Okay.
Until next time, everyone, keep on diving.